We've spent the first part of this module looking at the ecological imperative, the reality that our economy is embedded in the environment and that collapse awareness is essential. Now we shift to the other side of the coin, the business imperative. Why should companies act on sustainability? What makes this not just a moral obligation, but a business necessity? The ecological and business imperatives are aligned. What the planet needs and what businesses need increasingly overlap. This is not about choosing between doing good and doing well. It is about understanding that businesses cannot thrive on a planet that is failing. So let's explore why sustainability has become a defining force in shaping business strategy and success. The numbers help us see the scale of change. 41% of businesses cite customer preference for sustainable products and services as their main driver. 35% point to legislative and political pressure. 30% highlight resource scarcity. Competitors increasing their commitments to sustainability come in at 28%. Stricter requirements from partners in the value chain stand at 26%. Then we see owner demands for broader value creation, competing for new talent, and customers willing to pay a premium for sustainable offerings. Even employees are part of the picture, with almost 20% of businesses saying they act to meet staff expectations. And finally, 16% say they act to maintain their license to operate. Each of these factors tells us that sustainability is not just about external optics. It is about staying viable in markets shaped by shifting expectations. Research tells us a lot about why companies are changing their business models in response to sustainability. A study by Shelteger and colleagues in 2016 found that the top drivers were clear. First, customer demand for sustainable products and services. Second, legislative and political pressure. And third, resource scarcity. Together, these factors are forcing companies to adapt. Customers are voting with their wallets, governments are setting stricter rules, and ecological limits are becoming business constraints. These drivers show us that sustainability is not just idealism. It is rooted in market demand, regulatory frameworks, and the basic economics of supply and demand. Businesses that recognize this early are positioning themselves ahead of the curve. We can group these drivers into two categories: external motives, which are outside-in pressures like consumers, regulators, investors, and supply chains, and internal motives, which are proactive drivers, such as cost reduction, operational gains, and cultural shifts in the workplace. The balance of these motives is important. External motives explain why businesses feel compelled to act. Internal motives explain how sustainability can create value from within. Together, they show that sustainability is no longer a public relations exercise. It is both a defensive strategy to manage risk and an offensive strategy to unlock opportunities. Let's start with consumers. Consumer behavior has shifted dramatically in the last decade. Value-driven purchasing means that customers increasingly choose brands aligned with their ethics, whether on climate, labor conditions, plastic use, or supply chains. Many are even willing to pay more for this alignment. We also see dematerialization, where access is valued more than ownership. Sharing models, subscriptions, and secondhand markets are mainstream. Social media accountability has added another layer. Greenwashing and unethical behavior are quickly exposed, sometimes faster than regulators can act. What does this mean for businesses? Reputation has become more vulnerable and more valuable in a hyperconnected Authentic sustainability enhances brand equity, while failure risks boycotts, loss of trust, and reputational collapse. Think of companies like Patagonia, Veja, or The Body Shop. They have made ethics part of their brand value. The second major driver is regulation. Around the world, governments and international bodies are tightening the rules. Mandatory disclosure frameworks like the EU's CSRD, supply chain due diligence laws, carbon pricing, and extended producer responsibility schemes are becoming standard. Non-compliance carries real costs, fines, litigation, or even exclusion from key markets. For many companies, regulation is no longer an external issue for the legal department. It is a strategic concern that requires board-level attention. Regulation is shaping investment decisions, procurement strategies, and even access to finance. In this way, sustainability has become a risk management strategy. Companies that move early to comply not only avoid penalties, but often gain competitive advantages by setting industry benchmarks. The third external driver is the shift from voluntary commitments to mandatory requirements. Sustainability is now a legal necessity. What once began as voluntary guidelines has transformed into hard law. We see this in disclosure rules, due diligence obligations, and accountability mechanisms. The consequences of failing to comply are serious: reputational damage, fines, disrupted operations, or even exclusion from supply chains. What companies need to understand is that compliance is now the baseline. It is the floor, not the ceiling. Those who act early and transparently can turn compliance into a competitive advantage. The difference between being reactive and proactive can define whether a company leads in this transition or struggles to catch up. The fourth driver is investment. Sustainability has become synonymous with investability. ESG is now a core filter for investors and banks. Companies with strong sustainability performance are seen as lower risk and better long-term bets. Research consistently shows that sustainable investments demonstrate resilience and often outperform their peers. The strategic benefits are clear. Banks and insurers are linking financing terms to ESG performance. Companies gain access to green financing products. Weak sustainability means higher borrowing costs and reduced access to capital. Strong sustainability means favorable loan terms and lower interest rates. Regulations such as the EU Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation are tightening these links, requiring banks and investors to disclose sustainability risks in their portfolios. For businesses, this means that providing reliable ESG data is not optional. It is essential to remain fundable in the capital markets. The fifth driver is supply chain resilience. Today's supply chains are fragile. They stretch across continents, rely on just-in-time delivery, and often chase the cheapest raw materials. This makes them highly vulnerable to shocks, climate disasters, wars, shortages, or political insynchronicity and territories or instability. Sustainability in this context becomes a survival strategy. Companies that embrace sustainability are redesigning supply chains to reduce risk and increase resilience. They are building local and circular supply networks. They are choosing ethical and values-based partnerships. They are investing in long-term supplier collaboration rather than short-term contracts. In doing so, they not only protect themselves against disruption, but also strengthen trust and reliability in their networks. Sustainability is not only about what happens inside company walls. It is about the resilience of the entire system that businesses depend on. So far, we've focused on the outside-in pressures that push companies to act on sustainability. But the story does not end there. Internal motives are just as important, and in many cases even more powerful. These are the proactive drivers that come from within an organization. They include long-term cost reduction, operational gains and strategic advantage, and cultural shifts in the workplace. Together, they show that sustainability is not just about compliance or responding to pressure. It is also about unlocking opportunities, making companies leaner, smarter, and more adaptive. Let's take each of these in turn. One of the biggest myths about sustainability is that it is expensive. The truth is the opposite. When done strategically, sustainability is an investment, not a cost. It creates competitive edge, not constraint. It drives resilience, not luxury. Operational savings are clear across multiple areas. Energy efficiency through LEDs, smart systems, and better insulation reduces utility bills. Waste reduction lowers disposal costs and creates value by repurposing byproducts. Water conservation through low-flow fixtures, recycling, and leak prevention saves resources and money. Supply chain efficiency through local sourcing and fewer intermediaries reduces risk and cost. Durability and preventive maintenance extend the life of equipment. Compliance reduces risk, fines, and last-minute upgrades. In short, sustainability delivers both immediate and long-term cost advantages. The third internal driver is culture. Sustainability is no longer the job of one department. It is becoming embedded across all functions: finance, operations, marketing, procurement. There is growing demand for skills in ESG, climate risk, and carbon management. Companies that embrace sustainability attract and retain stronger talent. This is especially true among younger employees, particularly Gen Z. By 2025, research from LinkedIn shows that Gen Z will rank mission and values above salary when choosing where to work. Purpose-driven companies are simply better at retaining people. We also see the rise of sustainability entrepreneurs, employees who drive change from within. They launch sustainability programs, push purpose-led product lines, and design governance models that embed ESG. These individuals translate top-level ambition into measurable change on the ground. Culture, then, becomes both a driver and an outcome of sustainability. Let's take a moment to bring this lesson together. We've seen that sustainability is no longer just a moral choice or a marketing trend. It is being driven by real external pressures. Customers are demanding responsible products, regulators are tightening rules, investors are linking capital to ESG, and supply chains are pushing for higher standards. These outside forces are making sustainability unavoidable, but we also explored the internal motives, and these show us the real opportunity. Sustainability helps companies cut costs, improve efficiency, and gain a strategic edge. It is also reshaping workplace culture, helping organizations attract and retain talent, especially as new generations place purpose and values above salary alone. Compliance has become the baseline. It is the floor, not the ceiling. The companies that move early and act transparently will not only meet requirements, but also turn regulation into a source of competitive advantage. We also saw how sustainability is now directly tied to investability. Strong ESG performance attracts capital, lowers borrowing costs, and builds resilience. And on the supply chain side, companies are realizing that building local, circular, and values-based partnerships is essential for managing risk and ensuring long-term stability. So the message is clear: sustainability is not just the right thing to do, it is the smart thing to do. Companies that embed sustainability into their strategy will be the ones that thrive in resilience, in innovation, and in long-term success. That concludes Lesson 2 on the business imperative. Next, we'll move forward into